Hi, I'd like to kind of discuss briefly what I view as the underlying foundation of all philosophy. And that's the idea that we don't really know much of anything. The first notable philosopher that comes to mind when you think of this idea is Socrates, when he says, "The only thing I know for sure is that I know nothing." Now, he didn't actually say those exact words, they're attributed to him, but what he did say in various of Plato's writings was, "I know what I don't know," okay? And that was viewed as a mark of wisdom, was understanding where your limits of knowledge start and where the beginning of your knowledge starts, okay? And where where your knowledge ends, okay? Understanding what you know and what you don't know. And that's what sparked Socrates going around to all these very high profile, high ranking officials and people and experts and questioning them. And basically in most of Plato's writings, he makes a fool out of most of the experts in his society. And that's essentially what led them to put him to death, I believe, was how much ignorance he exposed in high-ranking society. Another philosopher of note was Epictetus, the Stoic Epictetus. He basically says, let us not assume that we know anything worthwhile, kind of more along those lines as well. And then Stoicism in general was not assuming you knew anything external, right? So not assuming that anything external impacted you because you didn't understand what those motivations were, right? But you do understand your own mindset, your own intention, your own will. So work on what you can control, which is yourself, and stop worrying about outside events. More or less, that's Stoicism in a nutshell, in a very brief synopsis of that. So understanding what you don't know, understanding that we don't know everything, understanding that we, in fact, don't know that much. Another philosopher of note that comes to mind is Galileo. Okay, he spent most of his career arguing with the establishment of his day, specifically the Catholic Church, on the nature of the stars. He had the argument that his telescope proved that heavenly bodies moved around each other, not just the Earth. Right? He proved that basically the moons were moving around Jupiter through his telescope. And then that became known as the Copernican view. It became the heliocentric model, where the Earth revolves around the sun, the moon around the Earth, the planets around the sun, and then you had the old model, the geocentric model, which essentially said that all of the heavenly bodies, the sun, the Earth, the moon, all of the planets move around the Earth, and everything, and the Earth is the center of the universe. So Galileo confronted the Catholic Church and the establishment scientists of his day and said, no, this is false. He even had inquisitors, beat down his door and take him. I believe he went to prison over this. They didn't end up taking his life, but he had to live his life in a lot of hiding and a lot of turmoil because he had the opinion that the modern scientists did not have. And we know how that played out. So, a few hundred years later, look at us. Modern day scientists confirm that the Earth and all the heavenly bodies move around the sun, and all the planets move around the sun. Now, I'm going to back up here, and for the sake of understanding that we don't know everything, I will say that as of modern times, it seems like that argument is coming back to the forefront. What is the truth about the stars above us? Is it heliocentric? Is it geocentric? What is it? And I see a lot of name calling on both sides of the aisle, both calling each other ignorant, both calling each other stupid, things like that, for holding an opinion of what they observe with their own eyes or what they hear from modern day science. And it would seem that not a whole lot has changed in the mindset of people and their opinions over the last several hundred years. There's that debate is still raging, as of more modern times. It's being questioned again, the mainstream narrative of science on the heavenly bodies. And people on both sides of the aisle are insulting each other, assassinating each other's careers, so to speak, over this whole ordeal. And look, the fact of the matter is, with this mindset that we don't really know much of anything, we need to be respectful of both opinions, because later on down the line in history, we don't know how this will play out. And whichever side is false will be proven false. And, one side or the other, depending on how they acted towards somebody of contrary belief and opinion, may be ashamed of themselves on how they treated the side that ended up becoming correct, right? Becoming confirmed correct. Another philosopher of note that had this viewpoint was Rene Descartes. He spent his entire life basically doubting, everything he was taught because he went around, much like Socrates, questioning experts and high-ranking and high-profile people, and realized nobody really knows anything. So what can I be certain of? And during one of his meditations, it became clear the only thing that he could be certain of was that he was a thinking thing. I think, therefore I am. Ergo cogito, ergo sum. So it's one of those things where even he came to the conclusion that we don't know a whole lot of anything. And in his later meditations, he goes on and says, but what is the source of my thought? I'm a thinking thing, but where does the first cause of my thought start? What's the first cause of my thought? And he ends up going into the dialogue and the meditation that it was God who was the source of your thought. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. That's the conclusion he came to. And again, we don't know anything, right? He understood he didn't know anything. He was just speculating. And he always understood that you can't just go along with what you're taught, what modern society teaches you, as many times it's wrong. Many times it's based on ignorance. Many times it's based on the conceited point of view that we know everything. Sir Isaac Newton is famous for saying, what I know is a drop, what I don't know is an ocean. Very famous scientist, made a lot of discoveries for his time. And so this is just a handful of some of the biggest philosophers in history that understood the fact that we don't really know anything. Now, am I saying we don't really know anything? No, you have your limited viewpoint of knowledge. You have your limited construct, your limited box that you've been put in, either through your education or through your culture or through your religion or whatever, your country. You have your limited perception, your limited lens of what you know. But there are fields of knowledge way beyond your limited vision of knowledge. Okay, so to give you an example of this, I'm a tax accountant, right? So, or a former tax accountant, and sales and use tax, right? So you have tax, and then you have sales and use tax, income tax, all the different taxes. So I had knowledge in sales and use tax. Does that mean I could debate a CPA with knowledge in income tax or income franchise tax or mixed beverages tax or property tax? No, my specialty was in sales tax. Now, does that mean a property tax expert or income tax expert shouldn't take any guidance from me if I were to give some input? No, because they also don't know everything as well. And so it goes both ways. So Socrates, in understanding that he didn't know much of anything, went around asking questions. And the experts that he was questioning were conceited, thinking they knew everything in their chosen field of knowledge. And through just a simple act of questioning, Socrates would prove them, in most cases, as ignorant, even in their own field of expertise. So we need to be careful as a society. We need to be very careful and stay open-minded. That's the key. We have to stay open-minded as a society to every idea that comes across. And something that comes to mind when I'm saying this is what Jesus said. Let no man call another man a fool, otherwise he's in danger of hellfire. Not an exact quote, more or less a paraphrase, but could that have meant that if we are conceited enough to call someone else a fool for what they hold true and dear to their hearts, what their opinions are, could we be damning ourselves? Could we be completely and utterly getting rid of ourselves as far as that goes and annihilating ourselves if we are willing to cancel someone else's opinion and say, you're a fool, close our ears and not listen to what they have to say? So it's very important. I'm seeing a lot of, just through studying philosophy, I'm seeing these repeated occurrences of a society that's conceited, thinking it knows everything that there is to know, and it's the pinnacle of all knowledge, okay? And then being proven wrong later on down the road, and the philosophers looking around and saying, you know what, I don't think we really know much of anything. We need to be careful here, So that's my overall foundation of philosophy is open-mindedness, okay? Practicing open-mindedness, being willing to hear the other side out. And Christianity, that's my background where I came from. I've since started questioning most of that because you realize you look around you and there's 30,000, I believe it's a literal number, 30,000 Protestant denominations. And then you have divisions within the Catholic origins of that as well, where people can't even agree on the basic definition of salvation or even what faith means. Or what being filled with the Holy Spirit means, and different things. People cannot agree on these very key issues of doctrine, and yet they debate each other as if the other side is damned. It's one of those things where If the Bible is a source of so much agreement, if the Bible is a source of agreement, why is there so much disagreement on various scriptures of the Bible? Various other religions, there's divisions in every other religion imaginable that you can think, where people disagree on basic doctrines and basic dogmas, right? So, and wars have been fought more in the name of religion than they have over actual resources. I believe even Voltaire points that out. Voltaire spent most of his career essentially debating the establishment as well, saying the same thing. Look, these doctrines are based on ignorance and superstition, and you guys are killing each other over it. Everybody has these beliefs and they think they're the pinnacle of knowledge, yet at the same time, maybe the other side is right. So we need to be careful, we need to stay civil, we need to stay discussing things, and we need to understand the limits of our own understanding and our own knowledge. And I think that's the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech and the freedom for the other person to hold an opinion that we don't necessarily value or hold dear to our hearts is the key to a free society, okay, that makes discoveries, that will spur innovation, and things like that. I mean, if you shut down the freedom to think, you shut down the freedom to discover, you shut down the freedom to invent and to be a free society. And, so in the day and age that we live in, which has been quite insane, to say the least, over the past several years as well, I would say let's just be careful. Let's take a step back. Let's understand that we don't know much of anything, okay? And doubt what you're told, doubt what you're instructed to believe by others, and look into it yourself, study it yourself, educate yourself, and then try to educate others with what you know. But always be open-minded with what you don't know, okay? Always be open-minded on subjects you don't understand. And even on the ones that you do, don't conceit yourself thinking you understand everything. I think if we could take that viewpoint as a society, I think we would be making a really good first step on not only mending injuries of past hurts that people with their hardline dogmatic opinions have made, okay? And then even injuring others, not only emotionally, but also physically, okay, in the most horrendous ways possible in past histories. I think if we all remained open-minded and listened to each other, that would be a great first step in moving forward as a society across all cultures, all religions, all philosophies. Okay, and we would discover and hit a new golden age. We would hit a new age of enlightenment if we were just simply open-minded. So, with that in mind, I went a little bit longer than I was hoping, but I hope you found this somewhat informative, somewhat inspiring. I plan on making videos weekly. So if you hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to discuss philosophy. It's my passion, and I want to discuss and learn more with everyone. Okay, so appreciate your time. I'll see you around.